confidence, but can one night of sleep get him together and say, okay, I might have lost those last 3 days, but I can prove something. I can beat the champ. We will see what happens as they shake hands, and the game has now begun.
It's prestige at stake here, and Magnus opening with knight f3 and slow playing it right into a queen's gambit position, and he has played c4, d5, and there we have the queen's gambit. Isolated queen pawn on the board about to appear. Very quickly, the players, again, you mentioned it at the top of the show there, Jennifer, how the players are, the clock has not been a factor, and they're playing so quickly.
Yeah, not nearly as much as you would expect, which just goes to show how phenomenal these players are in managing their time. As Magnus said before the tournament, to much applause. If you want to blame somebody else because you lost on time, you really need to think about how you manage your clock, right?
Exactly. And he wasn't sympathetic to anybody saying, oh, it was the clock, it was the clock. A4, in order to prepare the move B2, B3, A7, A6 in order to prepare B5, but now A5, no en passant, no B5 because of en passant. B2, B3, breaking up the structure, black structure on the queen side by attacking the pawn on C4 immediately. We see rook C8. Now it's going to be a capture. Ding is, well, he's not going to be happy about it, but he's probably going to have to recapture with the pawn. And then a move like bishop A3, getting rid of this bishop that's currently just a laggard sitting on the first rank.
I got to say, I'm a little perplexed by the pawn play for black so far in this game, as the move A6 allowing the straightforward A5 shutting down that structure on that side seems to give a lot of pressure to white. Also, that central pawn released with D takes, Yaz. Yeah. And now we see the benefit of A5 creating this isolated pawn on A6 to potentially attack. Now, that said, Ding does have two passed pawns. He has a passed A pawn and a passed C pawn. His A pawn can be captured right now, but there's some tactics in there to take on A6. Looks a little dangerous with rook A8 possible.
So he's played queen c2. Magnus declined the pawn.
Yeah, he's just thinking, look, I'm going to capture the bishop on d6, followed by capturing the pawn with my rook, which will not only gain a pawn, but also put black's pieces in a bit of a pin. Hence, we see the move knight d5.
That way bishop takes d6 can be answered by queen takes on d6, protecting the pawn on a6. But someday e4 is just going to scream to be played. And Magnus now deciding to be a bit more patient. He's going to blockade these passed ponies and then target them. Black will have to play with activity because long term, he's going to come under severe pressure.
Yeah, especially with e3, e4. But now having said knight c3, was that properly timed by Magnus? Knight takes c3, queen takes c3, and knight d5. And somehow those ugly scattered pawns on a6 and c4 are beginning to look a little potent.
Yes, that knight c3 move, admittedly, the issue with the move, although rook c6 defending takes and takes.
I don't like rook c6. That's just walking into a knight e5 tempo.
Indeed, he missed that knight d5. We had the superfluous knights. The knight on d5 and f6 were fighting for this d5 square by being able to get rid of his knight. Ding should have been happy, but now he's allowed this exchange of queens and his pawns being targeted, and it looks like he's going to lose one, and he's decided to actually forget about his A pawn and just march his C pawn down the board.
He's putting all of his eggs in one basket. That
now,
C pawn is the
other.
other.
There's still no luft for Magnus, so he solves that with king f1.
Well, the main issue, and as Magnus moves his king over, is can black bring his knight into play with effect? If he can get his knight to a nice little square, black would have something. But where he can't get it to d3, b4, it's possible d5 to b4.
Rook a1, knight e4. With rook b1 ideas.
Yeah,
he's taken on a6 as Magnus.
Wow.
Saying,
that's
greedy. What do you have? Rook b1, knight d3.
Well, there's a back rank.
There's a back rank mate, unfortunately. That's right. There's a back rank mating problem. So he had to make luft one full tempo. Black is down a pawn, but a c2 pawn is what the whole game is about right now.
Exactly.
But now the king can come in.
Right. King e2.
Or maybe we want to stop knight e4.
But then rook b1. Rook b1's a big-time threat now.
That's right.
The knight d3 is not going to hold the position
together?
together?
It's time to retreat all the way
to
rook
a2,
which
the Indians don't like at all. Knight D3 now played, and the issue is Rook C3 attacking the knight. That's right, Rook C3, and now what? How do you hold the position together after Rook to C3?
You're going to sacrifice a piece. It's King E2, Rook takes D3. Magnus has blundered a piece.
Magnus made a mistake with Rook A2, and he realizes it.
That's right, because after Rook takes C2, you play Rook takes C1. And
there
now,
you go, and now
after
you
Rook
must
takes
take
C1,
with the Rook, and he took the knight, and now it is Magnus who's going to have to somehow hold this position together as he is down a piece for 2 pawns.
That was a little hallucination there because of the X-ray. Interesting. I love that.
G6.
A winning position, but can Ding Liren show his technique?
He's got lots of time on the clock. Lots of time.
More than Magnus. Will he start
Very nice move
2 matches in a row with a victory with the black pieces?
Wow.
That would be an outstanding stout, especially looking at the score of the match.
Well, let's just
H4.
think a little bit. He won yesterday and got pummeled. You know, you get Magnus angry, but at least let's try to win 1 game and get it off to a good start. He still has the challenge of trying to keep his pawns, because Magnus is going to be looking to trade off all those pawns, and he's gotten 1 trade so far. He's going to look to somehow play H4 and get a 2nd trade, make life not so easy for Black, as Black is now challenged as to how to make any progress in this position. Now his king has had to step backwards to G7.
Exactly.
It's not easy. And now there goes Magnus looking to trade off another pair of pawns.
He's just played the move H4, has Magnus.
And if Magnus gets rid of the F7 pawn, that's it. It's a draw. So now trying to maintain, he's played G4,
H5, now he's trying to
H5,
play H6.
H6 tickle in the position, and if you take it, then you trade off pawns. Again, this is what Magnus wants.
What about Rook A5? Rook A5, coaxing the H pawn forward. Rook A5, H6 check, King G6.
G6, and then bring the Rook to H5.
No,
he's not seen that line, and he's gone instead to take. And that's it. 1 pair of pawns again removed from the board, and now it's all about a straightforward trade for the F7 pawn. That F7 pawn's going to keep itself way back. It doesn't want to get any closer. But how does this knight make any effect? Knight to B4, a strange move, as this knight is dancing around the board, but it has not found a home.
Looking to target F2, no doubt.
No, because he just backed up to C6. And it's just not
progress.
Clear how to do anything. His rook's going to have to get in the act at some point. I would hide the knight on G6 for a while. No, King F6, rook
but this
check,
is where
king
we see
back.
the impact of no increment and no delay.
And why does
Ding Liren has to
repeating
play
moves?
quickly,
A draw
and they have agreed to a draw.
That was
That's
poorly played. Poorly played. Ding had chances there with the knight versus the 2 pawns, but when he allowed the exchange of the G and H pawn, his chances just
Well, let's go back
disappeared.
to the tactic where Ding Liren tricked Magnus and ended up winning the piece for 2 pawns.
Yeah, that came just...
Because it was looking really good for Magnus, in fact. We thought that he could consolidate his pawn a little bit more easily, but there were some tactics. Like the moment where he played Rook A2 instead of Rook A1, which I think you were angling for.
Yeah, it was right about here. Rook takes A6. First of all, Rook takes A6 was a very greedy move.
But instead of Rook A2 already,
Sorry,
yeah.
I have to turn off my auto update
Oh, I see.
here.
Yeah. Gotcha.
There we go. Here
But let's
we
take
go.
a look at it live, Yaz.
Sure.
Here it is. So you were thinking Rook A1 to prevent Rook to B1, but then instead Rook A2.
Yeah.
And now the whole idea is that after Rook B1, Knight D3, Rook C3, and I'm sure Magnus saw all this, but perhaps what he missed is that after Rook takes C2, Rook C1, there's a little bit of an X-ray. You can't take with the Rook because of Rook D3, and if you take with the Knight, your Rook hangs.
Exactly.
So a little bit of a weird one. Of course, Magnus sees stuff like this in Blitz games even, but this time he missed it. He is human, yes?
Yes, he definitely made a tactical error here. Rook takes D3.
But was able to save the draw nonetheless.
Now, this is where I really thought that the chances for Ding were incredibly high. And he started out okay with the move G6 and King G7. And now he failed to really bring his knight into the game. He needs, as you were saying, Jen, to target the F2 pawn. And he really needed to be able to play F5 and Knight E4. And I think that would have given him his chances. Also about here, move H4, very committal. I was thinking he should play Rook to A2, once again targeting that F2 pawn. And also very big error there, capturing on G3 en passant. That was very helpful to the defender, in this case Magnus.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting because I noticed that he instantly played takes on G3. I thought that he thought maybe that G4 configuration would have been strong, but you're saying that actually maybe the H3 pawn could have been targeted.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Rook A1 to H1, and then White's king always has to stand defensively on the G2 square.
On the other hand, there's no way for the knight to target the H3 pawn, right?
No.
Because of that configuration with E3, and that's why Magnus went for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was trying to hold the position, and unfortunately for Ding, he made it easier. And that was what our result was, a draw. Over to you, Maurice.
Yes, there. Magnus now at 51 points to Ding's 19. Ding made a draw. That's with the black pieces, nothing to sneeze at. However, there was an opportunity he had that just flew right by. I mean, it's Blitz after all, so to calculate everything is very, very difficult. But there was one very instructive, at least for us, opportunity. In this moment, it seems paradoxical. King G6, I think 99 of 100 GMs would play in a Blitz game just instantly. But concrete analysis by the engine shows that here, G4 was completely winning. Not just kind of winning, completely winning. G4, the problem is that the rook is on C5, so there are knight forks that the king has to worry about. He can't go to G3, he can't hang out. And if you make this trade on this square, if you back up, then the rook comes down and the knight's headed to E4. This is the key. And he's going to target your F-pawn very fast. So moves like King E2, rook to A2 with check. And where do you put your king? You drop your king back, knight E4, and suddenly this pawn's under attack. G3 is coming. You've got to play a move like rook F5 just to defend because your rook's under attack, so this position. And now here, when you get to this position, F5, and you can see this is way, way different from the position that he had earlier when the pawns were traded off very easily. Now, the other opportunity here after G4, HG4 is if you don't back your king up, you play King F4, black continues with full activity with this move, and now you're in trouble because both your pawns are under attack. Your king can't go back to G3 because of the fork. If you push this pawn, then now you just drop material in this position, and black is now threatening to go here. And this is a very different position from the last one. This capture actually loses on the spot to check, and your king, again, has nowhere to go. Every move is a fork. Here is knight to E4 is a fork. And then if we go back, here is also knight to E4 with a fork. And again, if you go back, knight here, knight to D7 is a fork. This is why we don't play Blitz against engines, because they spot these kind of moves instantly. Unfortunately for Ding, he wasn't able to find the most accurate moves. He played logical human moves, but Magnus was able to liquidate the pawns and steer the game towards a draw.
Nicely played game.